Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is the Current Podcast. Bands of horses have long roamed the Yukon. That is something that people can agree on. What is tougher is finding consensus over how these horses got there in the first place. Some people claim they escaped from First Nations outfitters in the area decades ago and have since learned to fend for themselves, becoming feral over time. Others believe they can be traced back even further to horses from the Klondike Gold Rush era. Their origins have sparked debate over how long a species has to be living in the wild to be considered wild or native. And today in the Yukon, these horses are considered feral. In his documentary, CBC Whitehorse producer Andrew Hynes explores how the fate of these animals has become a preoccupation for a group of activists after one horse was discovered dead in a farmer's field. This is Andrew's documentary, A Death in the Valley.
Okay, so I'm just going to start by running through how things rolled out on this file. So just backtracking to the very first day that...
What you are listening to right now is a conversation that took place in February of 2025 in Whitehorse, Yukon.
So yeah, you sent me my drone footage. Sorry, this is quite extensive.
An extensive conversation between members of the Yukon government's agriculture branch and an interest group called the Friends of the Yukon Wild Horse Society, who reported a discovery 2 weeks earlier. The group shared this audio recording with me.
Following your report, we were actually forwarded images from the wildlife biologists and the wildlife veterinarian.
Because they did the flyover?
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about a horse being discovered.
They saw the patch of blood. They flew over just out of interest.
A dead horse.
No, what it was.
One that the Friends of the Yukon Wild Horse Society calls Scout.
Saw the horse and took a few photos, so we've got some photos.
The person doing most of the talking here is Amber Elliott. She's an animal protection control officer for the government. And she's invited the group here to go through her report on how this horse died. Because the Yukon Wild Horse Society suspects foul play.
The concerns that this horse had been shot and that the meat had been harvested.
The society believes the dead horse in question is part of a group of roughly 20 horses that roam the Ibex Valley. It's a long, narrow corridor of land flanked by multiple mountains about 30 minutes west of Whitehorse. These horses don't belong to anyone. They're not managed by the government. They just roam. Roughly a year before this meeting took place, new legislation in the Yukon made it illegal to shoot these horses without a permit. So if someone did indeed shoot this horse, the Yukon Wild Horse Society wants answers.
We have a lot of concern from our members. They were noticing Scout was gone. We needed to say something. We had held him off for a while.
This is one of the members of the group meeting with the government. After laying out her process, Amber comes to her conclusion.
We, in the end, were unable to uncover any evidence of human involvement with this horse's death, is basically what it comes down to.
No human involvement. The room goes quiet for a moment as Amber asks if they have any questions. And then a voice speaks up through a video chat.
Did you get my forensic report?
This is Aud Fisher, one of the founding members of the Wild Horse Society.
Because there's history.
She says there's history. Amber's report says the cause of death is unknown because there wasn't much left of the horse by the time it was discovered.
So at this point, this carcass was so heavily scavenged that there would be no possibility of obtaining a bullet from within this. There's nothing left but bones.
This conclusion leaves the group with more questions than answers.
How soon did you get out there? Did you get out there within a day that we reported it? Did you wait a whole week? This was a potential crime scene. Did they find the 3 legs that were missing? If you find the body of a human, though, you go out straight away.
Yes, absolutely. But again...
Because you were taking statements from the potential killers, shooters.
That is largely conjecture, and we can't operate off of that.
We are not the enemy. We are the solution.
Listening to this meeting, I'm also left with more questions than answers. Like, how did it get to a point where a group of passionate horse enthusiasts are so convinced that people are shooting these horses? It leaves me wanting to find out, What the heck is going on in the Ibex Valley? So months after that meeting, I headed there to find out. I'm being driven through the woods. My driver is Howard Fraughton, a member of the Friends of the Yukon Wild Horse Society. One who is quite proud of the capabilities of his side-by-side.
That was a two-wheel drive high, even. Wasn't even low.
Which is a machine that looks like the result of mating a golf cart with a dune buggy.
Pretty amazing. Yeah, this machine's a beast.
And in front of us, driving an off-roading beast of her own, is Loretta Zalewski. Loretta is one of the directors of the Friends of the Yukon Wild Horse Society. She was there the day of the meeting. According to the society, in the last 3 years, at least 5 horses have died, including one they named Bolt. His death is what led to Loretta joining the organization.
I would go to town, and I would see this wounded horse limping along, and it was getting close to winter. It was in the fall, and I thought, this poor guy's not going to survive.
She reached out to Aud, one of the founders of the Yukon Wild Horse Society, to find out who could help the horse.
She'd called RCMP, she'd called Humane Society, she'd called Animal Protection, and not one person would come forward and help. Every one of them said, oh, this is not my department, not my department. So we had to watch him for weeks just wither away and die. He ended up going off into the bush and nobody saw him again.
The horses in the Ibex Valley have a complicated history, and we're going to get into that. But for now, the short of it is the government used to manage them, but now they don't. Other wildlife, like bison and caribou, are carefully monitored, but not these horses. And if the Wild Horse Society was the only group looking out for them, Loretta wanted in.
I thought, if there's anything I can do to help prevent this from ever happening again. So I had contacted Aud, and I says, Aud, what can I do to help?
It turns out a lot of people feel this way about these horses, and the society has actually amassed quite the online following in the year and a half since she joined.
There was about 5,000 to 6,000 members on a Facebook group, and now there's over 14,000.
The group names the horses, all of the horses.
We got Tiger Lily and Ranger and Crocus and Willow and Pandora.
Some are named after trees like larch,
Tamarack,
juniper.
Did I say crocus?
You did. Back on the trail, Loretta's looking for signs of a band of horses led by one they call Mystery.
We're out in the bush. We're in new territory. For the last month, Mystery, Fairwind, Warrior, and Pippin have not been in the area where we've set up trail cams.
So, one of the ways that the society attempts to monitor these horses is by setting up trail cams in different areas of the Ibex Valley. They also use them to monitor their migration patterns in the valley. And so far, they've set up 30 of them. But the horse called Mystery's current location is still, well, a mystery. And so she sets up a few cameras, calls it a day. But these horses aren't the only creatures that call the Ibex Valley home. There's elk, wolves, bison, and humans. The latest census shows that about 500 people live in the Ibex Valley, and a chunk of them are farmers and ranchers, some of whom really don't like how the Wild Horse Society is going about things, and don't appreciate cameras being set up around their homes.
Well, they've got game cameras everywhere. Who knows where they are? I mean, if you're walking through the bush, and it's almost like you're afraid to even stop and have a leak because you don't know if there's a camera on your back. I mean, we didn't come here for that.
This is Hank.
My name is Hank Sipple, and I'm retired.
Hank used to be a truck driver in the Arctic.
Colville Lake, out of Norman Wells, Tuktoyaktuk was the furthest, I guess, I've been.
but now he and his wife own a ranch in the Ibex Valley.
We have 155 acres here, roughly.
About half of that is cleared.
And planted to hay now.
For their horses.
Yeah, we have 8 miniatures.
Their horses are domesticated, unlike the ones the Yukon Wild Horse Society focuses on. Hank understands that wild and feral animals are part of his life.
I mean, we have grizzly bears we've had grizz come right by the front windows here. Sow and 2 cubs, and they just keep moving on. I mean, we live in the wild, so we got to expect this.
But he says these Ibex Valley horses can be a nuisance.
Yeah, and the horses, they do go in the hayfield, they do paw, they make a mess, and that's why they get chased off.
Horses that the society calls wild.
Well, I don't know where these people come up with this. The people that are running around calling them wild horses don't have a clue what they're talking about, and they haven't researched it.
And Hank has a point. The Yukon government doesn't recognize the term wild horses. To them, the Ibex Valley horses are designated feral.
Feral has a negative connotation.
This is Loretta again.
If you actually look at the definition of it, it is wild. But because feral has you'll think of feral cats and feral pigs, and those are nuisances.
Feral versus wild is just one of the things that Hank tells me some farmers and the Wild Horse Society don't agree on. But it all essentially boils down to one point. Loretta thinks the horses need protecting, and Hank thinks they should be left alone.
That's right. Let life go on the way it's supposed to. We don't need a handful of people trying to change life. When we mess with Mother Nature, it's nothing but trouble.
And like the horses, Hank also wants the Yukon Wild Horse Society to leave him alone.
These Wild Horse Society, they trespass. They're causing tons of problem for farmers. They trespass on my neighbor's properties.
Some of them are more like, oh, what you're doing is illegal, you can't be here, and I can show them, yes, see, this is public property, we can go here and we can go here and you can't stop us.
They drive around through the hayfields.
They'll say, what's your name and where do you live, and I'm going to go on your property, and they'll say, well, we're not on your property, this is not your property.
I don't understand where these people get off doing this.
Loretta claims the vast majority of property owners in the Ibex are okay with their cameras. I spoke to one person in the area who allows their cameras on his property, but he thinks he might be in the minority. These tensions have popped up in many different ways, including one that for Loretta fell a step short of being ripped right out of a scene from The Godfather.
So Dory and I, my daughter and I, were going out to check on SD cards.
For the cameras?
Yes, and so it was a beautiful day.
Sunny, blue skies. They're getting ready to head into the field.
We had the quad loaded up and we were all headed out, and at the end of the driveway, here were these bones, and I thought, oh, that's really strange.
Horse bones. Almost an entire skeleton, largely intact. Deposited by someone at the end of her driveway.
And then, as I looked at the bones, I clued in, I knew that these were Scout's bones.
Loretta believes the bones belong to a horse she calls Scout. The one they were having a meeting about at the beginning of this story. Loretta was so worried she reported to the police, because for her, these bones felt like a warning. We know who you are, and we know where you live.
It was surreal. I just thought, oh, God. You know, the society, when I started, we were so good at protecting my anonymity. So when the bones were put down there, when the remains were put down there, I thought, oh, crap. How did they know who I am and where I live?
Hank said he doesn't know anything about bones being left in Loretta's driveway, and he doesn't believe any horses have been shot.
Oh, we have documented proof, actual pictures of the bullet wounds, and we had hunters out there to assess the carcasses, the remains, and they said, no, this is definitely bullet wounds. So it's not our opinions, it's the hunters that came with us.
I tried reaching out to the hunters, but was told by a Wild Horse Society member that they didn't want to speak with me. The society conducted this horse investigation in 2023. because they felt that no other organization cared about these horses. But a little less than 10 years earlier, that wasn't the case.
They were just running wild, but they were causing a lot of accidents, and people were saying, the highways aren't safe anymore, like we had all these accidents in 4 years.
This is Paul.
Paul Hynes is my name, and was the livestock control officer eventually I did the whole Yukon.
Like I mentioned before, the Yukon government does not manage the Ibex Valley horses. But at one point, they did. And it was all in the name of public safety. According to the Yukon News, a local paper, a 4-year period in the 80s had almost 90 car accidents involving horses, which resulted in 6 people dying. It was at this point that the government stepped in to try and keep those horses off the road. And Paul was a part of that. His job was wrangling horses along these highways in the territory. Both horses domesticated that escaped and feral ones that ran wild. He became a wrangler in the early 80s.
Yeah, livestock control officer just sounds better.
More professional than horse wrangler.
Very professional, yeah.
At the time, he says, there were up to 60 horses galloping around areas near Whitehorse at any given time. So the government puts out ads to find people to deal with the horses.
Yeah, it was in the newspaper, I guess, Yukon News.
He bids on the contract, gets it, and starts wrangling feral horses. After that, he was basically on call 24/7 for whenever a horse was spotted near the highway.
And I remember getting a call, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had to take off, and it was 40 below zero outside.
Gets in his truck with the horse trailer, starts driving to go find these horses.
And I remember them getting a couple in the trailer, and one horse went down on me. He slipped on the padding on the floor of the horse trailer, legs going everywhere. Nobody there to help me, and it's 40 below zero at 3 o'clock in the morning. That was some of the hazards of working.
And if he managed to get them into his trailer, he would then bring them to a place called the Pounds Keeper, which is like an impoundment lot, but for horses.
Yeah, exactly.
And for a long time, this is how the Yukon dealt with horses. They'd round them up, and if they were owned, then the owners would pay a fine. And if they weren't, the horses would be auctioned off, sometimes in the Yukon, other times to BC. And when the next group of horses escaped, or a new band of feral horses were found, they do it all over again. And Paul got pretty good at doing this.
Everybody was a game for me, And I picked up the deputy minister's horses one time, and he paid the fine, and he said, well, Paul caught me, and he was the guy that signed my boss's check,
Paul says the number of horse collisions started to go down eventually. And it looked like the program was working, but it came to a screeching halt in 2014 when a horse wrangler died trying to corral a band of feral horses. Corralling is when you trap horses by setting up a metal pen around them. Arnold Johnson was helping a contractor corral a group of these horses.
And the horse was looking for a way out, and he seen that little hole there, and he went and jumped in. This is my understanding how it worked out. And the corral and the horse fell on top of Arnold, and Arnold hit his head on the ground because the ground was frozen. And they got him to the hospital, and he died the next day.
And for Paul, that was his breaking point.
And that's when I said, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore, I was so mad at the time, so sad to hear that he got killed, that I said to myself, if I had still kept the contract, I might have gone out and hired a guy to go out and shoot the horses. And if that's the way we're going to be and keep rounding these stupid horses up all the time and go through the same thing and over and over and over again, then what's the point that somebody else gets killed too, That's how mad I was.
Paul felt this anger when the horses were still being managed. Some might wonder, is that anger still present now that they're not? Which brings us back to the death of 3 feral horses. Could they have been shot? Again, Hank has his doubts.
That's talk. Whether these wild horse people realize it or not, we've got a lot of wolf problems here. Mm-hmm. Like these younger horses, the wolves are going to take them. Simple as that. And they have for years. It's never been proven that they were shot. Somebody else's assumption You shouldn't go on assumptions. You should go on facts. You should know what you're talking about before you start talking.
Hank is right. You should go on facts. And so here are a few of them. The Ibex Valley is full of people who have strong opinions about what happened to these horses. And there's one person who has spoken to all of them. And so I went to her to find some answers. Am I just following you, Amber? Yeah. Great. This is Amber Elliott, the Animal Protection Control Officer who was investigating the death of the horse the society calls Scout. She was the one we heard on the recording of the meeting with the Wild Horse Society. We're wandering through a snowy field of horses on her dad's property just outside of Whitehorse.
So my family are outfitters.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, these are all mountain horses that are used for packing and riding in the mountains for the duration of the hunting season.
Oh my god, yeah, they're quite burly looking now actually as I get closer.
Yeah, they're all some variety of draft cross.
Okay. So you're kind of a horse person, eh?
Yeah. a little bit of a horse person, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Amber went from riding horses to essentially being one of the only people in the government charged with addressing reports involving them.
Our branch in government, the agriculture branch, is very small, and I am the only animal protection and control officer in the territory for livestock and feral livestock.
It's a job that comes from a new piece of Yukon legislation that was introduced in 2024, the Animal Protection and Control Act, the act that made it largely illegal to shoot or hurt the feral horses. Her report looking into the death of the horse last year was the first real test of this act.
Yeah, it was a learning thing for sure. It was the first investigation of its kind under the APCA and the Yukon, but it was new, and there was so much public interest in it, so it was an interesting one.
A year after her report, Amber stands by her findings.
I can't say how this horse died. It could be colic, it could be wolves, it could be maybe there was human involvement. I don't know, but what I could not find was any evidence to suggest that there had been human involvement.
This horse's cause of death might never be determined, but he's just one of 3 horses I've come to talk about. I hand Amber a copy of what the Wild Horse Society calls their forensic report. It's the documentation that Loretta mentioned earlier. Inside it are graphic pictures of the carcasses of the horses the society calls Storm and Sundance. And they are not skeletal. A couple photos show a large round hole on the side of the one they call Storm's head. Another reveals a different large hole in her shoulder bone. Yeah, I'm wondering, what do you see when you look at that? Yeah. What goes through your mind?
Well, I mean, because this has been termed a forensic report and because there have been some opinions based on the observations that these people made in the field, I'm looking at these photos trying to see if maybe there is something that could potentially be a gunshot. And I see one of these bones here does have a hole that is not natural. Certainly, I mean, I can't say based on these photos, looking at these images right now, what that is or is not. It could be a gunshot hole. But again, with these photos being taken when this incident happened, the APCA was not in place. So therefore, at the time, to shoot one of these horses would not have actually been illegal.
So even if she was able to say that these horses were killed by gunshots, they died 5 months before protections for feral horses came into place in the territory. Some would argue that the horses aren't invested in this story. The horse, known as Mystery, probably doesn't care about this mystery. But some people do, and they care a lot. They care so much that some might wonder if the future of these horses is more about the people than the horses themselves.
That's absolutely it. I mean, the species itself, it's a horse, right? It's not the management of the species, it's managing people and their passion and their expectation and their concerns. It's a juggling act, and I don't know that it's possible to juggle it. It's a situation where all parties are not going to be 100% happy no matter what is done, if anything is done with them in the future.
The future of these horses is also a mystery. There's no telling what might happen if wolves target them, or what this harsh winter might do to their numbers. But for Loretta, that's part of the experience.
It's heartbreaking, but for this society, that's part of being wild. You have the joys of seeing the new birth and having them come through the winter. They may be a little skinny, but they've come through the winter and they're giving birth to their foals. And you have those joys to combat the sorrows.
A documentary, A Death in the Valley, was produced by Andrew Hynes of CBC Whitehorse with help from Julia Poggle. You've been listening to The Current Podcast. My name is Matt Galloway. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon.